Thank you very much, and thanks to organizers of this outstanding event for the opportunity for me to make this speech, to make a comment to what was said previously. So, in my speech, I'll try to focus basically on two issues. The first one is I represent the Russian think tank, which is a non-governmental one. I'll try to highlight Russian strategy in the field of cybersecurity. Then I'll try to provide some views, some feedback on the Indian approach and on the Indian recently adopted document, National Cybersecurity Policy. And to conclude my speech, I would like to highlight to some extent the issues of critical information infrastructure protection. So just to begin with, I would like to refer to what was said in the beginning of our session when my colleague mentioned that, in fact, this is a very disputable idea that all of us understand clearly what cybersecurity is. I do agree with that, and I would say that the very notion of cybersecurity is derivative from the understanding of what cyberspace is. And just to illustrate how drastically different could be the understandings and approaches, I'll just show some of the notions accepted in documents of different countries. For example, Germany, in its cybersecurity strategy, understands cyberspace as the sum of all IT systems linked at data level on a global scale. Though strictly speaking, no air-gapped SCADA systems are included in this understanding. Indian national cybersecurity policy, basing on the ISO standard, refers to cyberspace as to a complex environment consisting of interaction between people, software, and services, supported by worldwide distribution of ICTs, devices, and software. A very different understanding. And now a third one, Russian, from an international agreement by the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, to which Russia is a member, a different term, information space. So information space is a sphere of activity connected with the formation, creation, conversion, transfer, use, and storage of information. Three very different understandings. And this diverging conceptual paradigm of cyberspace and cybersecurity gives birth to different cybersecurity strategies. That's why we have a situation of diverging views, diverging approaches, and diverging response strategies. So just a few words on Russian official approach and cybersecurity strategy. Strictly speaking, on the level of official documents, Russia still doesn't have a cybersecurity strategy. But it has a number of strategic documents covering the broad agenda, mostly in the international aspects. There were a number of documents, draft documents, but all of them were summarized the national vision of Russia's goals and national interest in the international arena on the issues of international information security. This vision was summarized very recently, in the beginning of August this year, when a document was adopted, which is called the Principles of Russia's National Policy in the Field of International Information Security to 2020. It happened just a month after Indian national cybersecurity policy was promoted on an official level, so it's good reason to compare those two documents. So if we try to do it, we'll see that they are very, very different. The Russian document is completely dedicated to the global and international aspects of the issue, international aspects of Russia's activity in the field of information security. So Russia has four priorities, four basic threats to counter and to respond to. They are the triad of threats: criminal, terrorist, and military political. And there is a fourth element, which was added to Russia's official approach after the events of the Arab Spring, which is the use of ICTs in order to undermine political sovereignty of nation-states. So these four priorities form the vision of threats to counter. And there are four levels on which Russia's approach is implemented and developed. The first level is global, through the mechanism of the United Nations as the only world organization who has almost all member states as its members. So a number of documents was elaborated by Russia for this level. First of them, and the most important of them, is the draft conception of Convention on International Information Security, which was presented to the world community in 2011 in London. It is still not adopted as a UN official document, but it summarizes Russian views and tries to promote it at the global level. Besides, another document is being drafted, prepared by Russia now. This is a draft UN Convention on International Cooperation Against Cybercrime. This document, in the vision of Russia's diplomacy and the framework of Russia's official approach, is the next step of international cooperation against cybercrime after the Budapest Convention did its job and responded to the challenges of the previous decade. Now we need to go further. Now we need the global scope. Now we need a global, legally binding UN document. It never was presented. Some experts expect that it might be presented very soon, probably even in Seoul in a few days, but I'm not trying to guarantee. Besides, another one document, this is just an idea now at this stage, an idea of a document, still to be officially promoted, dedicated to international cooperation in protecting critical information infrastructure, including information systems of nuclear facilities. This is a new priority for Russia's official agenda, but this is a step forward. Then goes regional level. On a regional level, Russia perceives the aim of arranging some intergovernmental agreements with its allies within the frameworks of several regional formats. The priority, three formats have the priority. They are the Commonwealth of Independent States, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. As I already mentioned, within the framework of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the agreement was signed in 2009, 4 years ago. This is Shanghai Cooperation Organization Intergovernmental Agreement on Cooperation in the field of international information security. Besides, there are some goals to promote within the formats of BRICS, G8, G20, Asia Pacific, and OSCE. But the priority here is lower for Russia. Then goes bilateral level with two mechanisms. The first mechanism is legally binding intergovernmental agreements on a whole range of issues of international information security. So largely within the domain of the Russian understanding of the issue. One agreement was signed, as far as I know, with Brazil in 2010, but it was never ratified, so it's not acting now. Probably recent events related to Snowden disclosures would facilitate the promotion of this agreement, and it might be finally ratified. Another example of bilateral cooperation is I was mentioning in my comments a few hours ago. An agreement between Russia and the United States of America on CTBMs in cyberspace signed in June this year. After Snowden case, the further fate of this agreement is also under question, but if it is still implemented, that would be a significant step forward because we never had any trust-building mechanisms between us and the United States. We never had hotlines, 24/7 information sharing facilities, and the very idea that we can successfully build trust in cyberspace despite our fundamental contradictions in this field. And finally, a national level follows as a fourth one. On this level, Russia has a number of governmental bodies, governmental regulators responsible for the issues of information security. They are FSB, Federal Security Service, Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of Defense, Federal Service on Technical and Expert Control, and some others. In January this year, a very important order was signed by Mr. Putin, which delegated the whole responsibility of building a nationwide system of protecting governmental networks to Federal Security Service. Before that moment, there was no single agency responsible for that task. Another curious fact is that now Russia is actively working on establishing its own analog of cyber command within the structure of the General Staff of the Armed Forces. Many other activities take place simultaneously, but it's time to return to comparing Russian approach and the Indian one. Several points which describe the basic difference. Russian approach is heavily focused on international aspects. Russian approach is dedicated to the very ambitious goal to prevent cyber wars and other large-scale malicious cyber activities, to prevent and eliminate them totally in the end, after all these legislative measures are implemented on the international level. And it pays much less attention to private sector and its role in implementing these tasks and reaching these goals. On the contrary, Indian national cybersecurity policy is practically all about private sector and its role. It's well elaborated, very timely document, a strong incentive for further development of cybersecurity agenda and strategy in India. Benefits are quite clear, so I won't pay much attention to it. Instead, I shall refer to the aspects which, in my mind, could be further improved within the framework of Indian approach, basing on the document on NCSP. First, we should admit that the document is not a cyber strategy itself. It's just a part of it, because the strategy has an action plan, a time frame, a list of partners to implement it with, a list of contractors, and measurable objectives, determined depending on the time frame. What is missing is the block on international cooperation. For example, the document doesn't answer the questions, is the format of international public-private partnership, whether it is a priority for India or not in the field of cybersecurity. With whom should we develop such partnerships? How to cooperate with transnational corporations in the IT sector. The issues of transnational jurisdiction come here. Facebook, Google are trans-border actors, as many other internet stakeholders. Who are strategic Indian partners for developing CTDMs in cyberspace? With whom should India develop cooperation, international cooperation in protecting critical information infrastructure? And many other issues of that kind. The document does not identify the priorities and clear action plan of India in the field of international cooperation. The second aspect is that an integrated institutional framework of national level cybersecurity system is a thing which is also seems to be missing. Okay, you have a number of governmental agencies to be established, national critical information infrastructure protection system, national nodal agency responsible for cybersecurity issues, and the network of CERTs, but it is unclear from the document how their responsibilities are divided among these institutions. How do they cooperate and coordinate their activities? Who is responsible, for example, who is responding to an attack on a large industrial facility, on a large governmental online resource? So this is still to be identified. The system is still to be built of interaction, of clear division of responsibilities. And I know that I have only 1 minute left, so I'll dedicate it to the issues of critical infrastructure protection. It's also impossible without international cooperation. It should be a priority. Let's refer once again to the Stuxnet case and the cases of the very complicated malwares identified in 2 years ago, 1 year ago in the Middle East. Stuxnet was investigated. It was first found by a Belarusian IT security company. Then it was analyzed and investigated by Russian Kaspersky Lab, though it was active in Iran and in the Middle East. Another example that Kaspersky Lab was invited through the ITU Impact International Public-Private Partnership Mechanism to investigate the case of sophisticated attack on SCADA of an oil plant in one of the Gulf states a year ago. It happened just because local experts were not capable of even to identify the malware. It was so complicated. it proves that you need not your national best practices, but the world's best practices and best skills to investigate attacks, sophisticated attacks on critical infrastructure. And that's what you need to do. You need to develop a national framework of cooperation in the field of protection of critical information assets, critical information infrastructure. So India should consider the options of drafting some strategy, some plan for participation in such formats. And the same refers basically to cloud security, to security of global supply chains. Because it was said many times today that there are no borders in cyberspace, and all the issues are trans-border. But then you need pay much more attention to building the international framework of dealing with those issues. Many legal issues emerge, but I have no time to pay any more attention to it. Probably, if there will be a question, I'll answer to it. Thank you very much for your attention.